Hi everyone. Welcome to this special edition of the Market Pulse brought to you by the Middle East Organic and Natural Products Expo Dubai and the Natural World Expo Saudi Arabia. I am Shailen Shukla, General Manager at Almana Logistics in Muscat, Oman, and our focus today cuts straight to the core of the regional commerce. The GCC is open for business, navigating supply chain, sourcing, and market access in 2026. So we have seen the turmoil, we have seen the upheavals, we have seen the challenges. You tried booking space, you don't get, you don't know which port your vessel will land on, you don't know how much time waiting is there on the port when it is finally discharged, whether how much time you'll take to get your cargo, going via Oman to Jebel Ali or going via Khorfakan, Fujairah, or going via Jeddah to places like Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain. I mean, so many variables we have seen that really the whole supply chain has turned topsy-turvy. So GCC supply chains are no longer behind the scenes. They are a boardroom imperative with geopolitical shocks and disruptions through critical, energy corridors like the Strait of Hormuz, affecting freight costs, lead times, planning, and supply chain strategy. So the strategy has shifted from a tactical cost center to a matter of national economic stability and corporate survival. And I know my friends in the government, where there are governments who are sitting with 6 months of water, 6 months of staples, sugar, wheat, and whatnot, just for just in case moment, that if something goes wrong, then they have enough food. So because moments of volatility are not at the time to build new systems, today's session cuts straight to reality. And we brought regional importers directly to the table to reveal how procurement criteria has evolved, what it takes to secure a spot as primary or backup supplier, and how to protect business in the Gulf this year. So we have an amazing panel of speakers, and I would just name them and request them to quickly give an introduction in 1 minute. So we have Mr. Tariq Abdulaal, Chief Supply Chain Officer at Bateel International. Tariq, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, based on your time zone. This is Tariq Abdulaal. My experience has been all in the supply chain, focusing on Middle East, Africa. Prior to my current role at Bateel, most of my career has been with Procter and Gamble, looking after doing like different assignments in manufacturing, planning, logistics, and regional supply chain roles. It's great to be here with the team, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion.
Welcome, Tariq. We look forward to listening from your rich experience. And joining us also is Mr. Ahmed Attiya, Senior Group Supply Chain Director at Zahrawi Group. He's a very great and old friend. Uh, Ahmed, please go ahead and introduce yourself. I think there is some issue, and we'll move on to introduction with our last panelist, Rezek. He's head of supply chain GCC at Tim Hortons. Rich experience in supply chain and procurement. Rezek, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Shailen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rezek, and I have the supply chain for the Middle East and GCC of Tim Hortons, operating 350 stores. We import goods from across the globe, uh, from the America, from China, from Europe, from Malaysia, from different parts of the world. So, and prior to that, I was with a group called BNB. It's a local manufacturer which also supplied the GCC and the MENA region, along with some exports to the US. Typically, we used to import a lot of raw material from Europe, from Asia, and from the US. I'm looking forward for today's discussion, sharing insights, and we have a lot of live examples, especially with this past 6 months, the action that we've been living. So looking forward for that. Thank you, Shailen. Thank
Amazing,
you, everyone.
amazing to have you here with us, Rezek. And we go on to Mr. Ahmed Attiya, very good and old friend, who's the Group Supply Chain Director at Zahrawi Group. Yeah, looking forward to hear from you, Ahmed. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Shailen. It's good to see you back and see everyone around. My name is Ahmed Attiya. I've been working in the healthcare supply chain for the past 2 decades. I'm currently working with Zahrawi. We are importing from China, India, US, Europe, and all heavily regulated material, cold chain, and certainly the past few years was very challenging to my sector and my industry, given the COVID, given the other disruptions that pre-COVID and post-COVID, I mean, and also the geopolitical things. Have like my colleagues, I come with a good inventory of challenges, stories, success, and failures that I would love to share with you guys.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. So between four of us, we have the entire world covered. We have the entire spectrum of supply chain modes of transport, whether it's sea, air, road, and we'll talk about everything as we go on. So let's jump into the various panels. And we have 4 sessions today, each addressing a real shift that GCC importers have had to navigate and what that means for the exporters and suppliers, what they have to navigate and, what happens on the other side of the table. So let's start with the foundation, how GCC importers are choosing who to work with. So I'll start with, Tariq. Tariq, the question to you is, we used to have like a relationship with our vendors where most of the time, 80, 90, or sometimes even 100% of our quality goods were coming from just one supplier. And how has that relationship first model evolved? And it's played a significant role in the past, we know, in the importing. So how has that evolved and how does supplier vetting happen now? And what does onboarding look like today? What actions you have taken to safeguard yourself and so on? Please let us know.
Yeah, thank you, Shailen, for the question. I think the whole the world has recently, over the past years, not only like in the most recent history, has learned that we have to adopt or adapt to the new reality of the world that we are living in. Obviously, the time where you used to have like the bulk 90% or so of your sources assigned to one supplier is no longer sufficient. Today, the call is more, and of course, I mean, probably the most at that time, many years back, the key motive or motivation has been creating scale with a supplier that will give you a price advantage, cost advantage. Unfortunately, this is no longer the only key parameter. Of course, cost will always be an important parameter in the supply chain, but in today's world, resilience becomes extremely crucial. Choosing the supplier location, be it, what I mean by location, based on the political kind of like world that we're operating with today, where is that supplier is located, the level of stability of the freight channels or the transportation modes from the supplier to your place, and of course the exposure that you will have in terms of like stability of the flow of material from the supplier to your place are not new. I mean, these are getting to be more demanding than ever before, if I would say. So yes, definitely we're looking to diversifying the sourcing strategy based on, of course, we all know, like, we are in the supply chain. We diversify based on the portfolio of the material that we are managing. Not all materials will follow the same sourcing strategy. But of course, I think the common rule is that the days where we had the luxury of allocating the whole sourcing to one supplier is no longer a big advantage. Yeah.
But also you have the advantage of having all the Bateel dates coming from your own farm. So I'm sure that is not affected except for the shortage of trucks, maybe.
Yeah, so yes, that's a good point. As long as, like, within your supply chain, the level of control you have will dictate the reaction. Yeah. So when you are vertically integrated, that gives you an advantage, a big advantage in terms of, like, having your grip around the security and the resilience of your supply chain. Of course, for us, as you mentioned, probably the biggest challenge for us when it comes to our internal flow of material will be transportation. So definitely, it is a major challenge in that regard.
And probably whatever 10-20% you're sourcing from rest of the world, is that affected? You've gone to multiple markets, more vendors. How does that work?
Yeah, so the proportion of our other than the dates in our, like, portfolio is bigger than 10-15%. So we have a quite, like, sizable list of imports or, like, other ingredients other than the dates that goes into our manufacturing.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks, Tariq. And jumping on to Ahmed now. Ahmed, my question to you is that beyond price and product quality, what genuinely differentiates one supplier from the other? How does an exporter, I mean, what does an exporter need to demonstrate to earn your confidence, especially that you're looking for new suppliers? You don't want to jump randomly with a new vendor without testing him.
So yes, this is actually a very good approach that nowadays, after we learned from COVID and after we learned from the post disruption that happened after COVID, and as well as the current geopoliticals, is the security and the agility and the flexibility are things that we have to maneuver over any new other supplier. So with suppliers that have multiple manufacturing locations is an advantage. With suppliers that have different plants in different countries is also a must. And also the capacity, how much they can produce. Are we the biggest client, for example, and in case that we will increase, this means that we will go over their capacity or not. So their capacity limitations has to be understood. The diversity, the agility, and above all this, when it comes to medical devices and life sciences, the flexibility and the agility and the response time. So I don't want a supplier that takes a QC happen over 18 to months, for example. So they have the production, but they are unable to release it because they are doing an extra QC, for example, for an additional for another year. No, I don't want this. I want something to be agile, something to be flexible enough, supplying from different sources. They have manufacturing plants in Asia, for example. They have manufacturing plants in Latin America. So the flow will happen from anywhere. And also, so this kind of diversity and flexibility is on our radar nowadays when it comes to not only the product, not only the quality, but the diversity and So yes, these are beyond price. These are kind of things, and of course, when it comes to humans and dealing with highly regulated products, is the compliance and the governance that is required for each country. So each country of the GCC has their own governance and their own regulatory framework that we have to comply with. So anyone are not willing to comply with the current framework and the regulatory requirement, then will not be able to operate. So these are things that we look into it beyond the price and beyond the regular in terms that we use to
Thank you, Rezek.
identify.
Thank you, Ahmed. Now, jumping on to Rezek, I love my morning cup of Tim Hortons. And we would love to hear, what struggles you're facing. Does everything come from one source, or you have like things flowing from all over the world? How are you managing? And how do you balance loyalty, with your vendors to a long-standing supplier with, operation ease versus diversification? How do you go about dealing with this without damaging the old relationships and also bringing resilience into your supply chain?
Great question. Thank you, Shailen. So to answer the first part of your question, we have some gold product that should come from the US. That's like the coffee beans. So unlike the example that Tariq gave that they have their own dates, our own beans, yes, we have them, but they are unfortunately coming from the US, and we have no other option except from sourcing from our roasteries because we own the roastery and we own the crops. The only opportunity that this tension has created for us is the acceptance to start exploring an option within the region. So within the region, they are targeting now to explore a roastery that can do the job for us to ease the stress of supply across the stores we have here. Plus the opportunity they created in other markets to have other roasteries to support in APAC or in China, just for the distance and for the flow of goods to come in the right timing. So some of the products we were able to localize. They were supportive to help us to localize it. There was good players in the market with good capacity, good quality, which the door was not open before. That created an opportunity for them to give samples and get listed and start supplying. While other products, which is exclusive for the brand, the plan is still ongoing. It's not yet executed, but the discussion is very advanced in having local roasteries to support the supply of goods. On the other side, the loyalty and the cost, the relation between us and the suppliers, the long-term relations, I would say they are not majorly affected because the choice of diversification didn't come out of cost saving or change of brand. It's come out of force majeure. The supplier understands the complexity of delivering the goods to us. Yes, he can produce. Yes, he can have them ready, but he knows that he will struggle to deliver them if the Incoterm are door to door, let's say. Or he knows that if we want to pick up the goods from his facility, we will struggle to find shipping lines to come on time without affecting the quality, the shelf life, which is the most important. We're dealing with food item that had shelf life. Staying on sea for 6 months, for example, until reaching to you, you're losing 50% of the product shelf life, which will make it difficult to consume it and give it fresh to your customer. So the relation didn't much get affected. I would say they were very understanding of the situation, of what's happening around the region. On the opposite, they were suggesting some partners within the region that can supply us similar product until things stabilize. So yes, let's say X factory sits in Malaysia, used to get X product from them. They're not able now to supply because of the complexity. You can go to X Y vendor, which we know, and they have similar product temporary until we were able to supply you back. And they start having some kind of tied up between them. At the result, for me as an end user, I'm getting the product, let's say locally instead of internationally from that supplier. And I'm maintaining the relation between us to be like on hold for now until things are back to normal. Then we can resume the supply and demand from them.
Thank you so much, Rezek, for that insight and really
Thank you.
amazing to hear. I hope you open a roastery in the UAE or Oman or somewhere in the GCC, so that we never run out of our favorite coffee beans. So let's jump on to the session 2 titled Rerouted, the overnight reshaping of stock, shipping and demand planning. So let's talk about what happened operationally and what has permanently changed. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, like I am shipping cars for Bahrain from Dukum. I am shipping cars for UAE from Jeddah, and my own cars from in Qatar are coming from UAE, Oman, Saudi, everywhere. So much of rerouting has happened. So I mean, question one to Tariq is. Tariq, supply disruptions have forced importers to rethink stock policy almost overnight. So, as supply reliability becomes less predictable, we don't know where the ship will dock. We don't know from which port the vessel is, going to send the containers. So, it's less predictable. So, how does it affect your approach to, say, reorder quantities and safety stocks? So, and do you think any of these changes will become permanent? I mean, some people call it COVID too. Is it here to stay? The rerouting and the rebalancing.
Yeah. So
Tariq, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure there will be there will be definitely an impact on the long term kind of like design factors. Let me put it this way. But the short to medium kind of like reaction is, of course, with all the ambiguity going about, around the sourcing, which route you will channel to, like both import and export. I will talk both ways, because I think everyone in the region, they are facing difficulties while importing and exporting. And of course, the aftermath of what's happening, there has been not only the longer kind of like longer lead times to reach to other regional ports, but also the congestions that are created as a result of this rerouting that everyone is doing. So yes, so it's a mix definitely with the straightforward kind of like, the first thing that comes to mind is that we need to build more buffer to overcome the volatility of our supply lead times. Even if you speak to like simple direct kind of like lanes from Europe to this region. And I mean, even Europe itself, I'm sure, like, everyone knows that as a result of the energy kind of like hikes, a lot of Europe factories today are pursuing a different operating strategy, where they try to optimize manufacturing kind of like runs, and that will lead to longer lead times for their customers. So it's not only logistics; it goes even beyond as a result of other factors other than the geopolitical, Shailen, other than the geopolitical impacts. So in total, yes. I mean, the first that comes to mind is, yes, I will try to build more buffer stock to overcome until I figure out what is happening, what are the different factors that are playing, and then probably create more of a mix of trying to localize, even as Rezek mentioned, even temporarily localize some materials until we figure out as a backup solution. I mean, until we figure out more stable, sustainable sourcing model to readjust and readapt.
Thank you so much for that. And Ahmed, I mean, we are sitting with countries who have visionary leaders. And I worked in Jeddah in 2025, and the Red Sea problem hit Jeddah, and Dammam was not ready. Now we are seeing in UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, this Hormuz problem is there. And the ports on the side of, say, Khorfakan and Fujairah, and even Sohar is congested, Dukum is congested, Salalah is congested, the ports which are open. So freight routing has become a live decision rather than a fixed process, So when you book from China, we booked a container, it got dumped in Hong Kong and came after 2 months, So in these kind of situations, established routes are very unreliable and have become very expensive, So how do you approach alternative routes? How do you balance cost, speed, and reliability in your line of business? Ahmed, you are on mute.
Well, actually, the thing is that during the regular days, we have this as a part of optimization, efficiency, things, like improve margins, increase efficiencies, have a better demand planning, and have a cheaper shipment, for example. So this is what the day-to-day happened. But during the past few months, this became a life decision, as you mentioned, Shailen, that it was like a room that's filled with and they inform us that okay, this will deliver to Khorfakan, and then they change it. No, Suhar, and then no, we had to go back to India. We are parking in India for a while, so it and since the materials that we are dealing with is we our decisions was based on the criticality of the items, to be honest, whether I will be going to stock out or not. So our decision-making process during this period was very flex, agile, and not concentrated on the cost, to be honest, but concentrated that we don't go out or the business or not to fail in supplying some critical supplies to the patients and the people in need. And so it was completely based on criticality rather than cost. Sometimes we had to pay more than the goods itself to ensure the materials are received. This had its pros and its cons, of course, because it first served the social liability that we are having to ensure the supply that is happening to the community. But in the meantime, it affects the business one way or another. But again, the business is expected to recover rather than so during the tough time, it's based on criticality. Just to answer your question with one word, that it's based on criticality, not based on the cost.
So right now, it's more important to have the stock at any cost rather than not having it and going out of business.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ahmed, for that. And Rezek, now coming to you. See, when supply becomes unpredictable, so what information support do you expect from suppliers to help you plan demand and inventory? Are they transparent with their supply times? Are the shipping lines transparent with the delivery times? And if something goes wrong, how do you manage?
Great question, Shailen. So definitely today lead time and shipping time is unpredictable. So none of the supplier is able to commit. Whatever information they got from liners, they're passing it to us. We always keep a buffer up to 30-35% of the lead time because we knew that based on the previous shipments we've done, the timing is not correct. Shipments got lost, as you said, shipment got offloaded in different ports, and then you have to pick up from different port to bring it to somewhere else. So but if you want to go back one step to the supplier information, I would love the supplier to be transparent with me first on the availability of his raw material and his readiness to be able to cater the demand. That's one. Knowing that there is a big challenge, at least I'm talking within my sector, products are having shelf life, food item, right? Your demand has increased because you want to increase your par level, but your sale also got affected because the sale is not performing well. So you need to find the right balance where to sit between a good par level without putting pressure on the operation to sell cheaper to deplete the stock because the shelf life is approaching. So the balance now is very difficult to happen, especially on supply chain. How to make sure that you have stock not close to expiry but not out of stock. So that's three combination is the decision that a wise supply chain in charge would take to maintain his par level, helping his operation to sell. From supplier side, transparency in raw material availability one, and the price as well, because even his price has increased to source his raw material, and definitely he will absorb some, pass some to you, and then you will absorb some, pass some to your customers. So the chain should be very transparent, very lean, for us to be able to pass this tough timing, because it's a win-win. If he's dumping goods to me one time, I will never come back to him, especially in this timing. So he needs to be understanding of my positioning. I need to be understanding of his positioning of sourcing the main raw material, and then it will become a win-win situation for both of us.
Thank you so much, Rezek, for that. And jumping on to the new, third panel. So the third panel is about when demand outpaces supply. What are the lessons, from this procurement crunch? We all have been tested to our limits. We know that the shipping lines are making huge tons of money. We know that the truck operators are making huge amount of money. And also, surprisingly, I've also heard that some of the suppliers taking advantage of this, tried to jack up prices, in some cases. I don't know whether it's true with you. So coming back to Tariq, when you need to bring in an alternative supplier quickly, how do you balance speed with quality, compliance, and due diligence?
Yeah. So in Bateel, as you guys probably, some of you, many of you are familiar with, quality, we don't compromise on quality. So this is a high-end kind of like brand, and we pay the utmost attention to all the ingredients so that we ensure the authenticity of the service is not jeopardized. So yeah, so the reality is it gets very complicated to find alternative sources for us, because it follows a very detailed, a lengthy assessment process to qualify an alternative kind of like or substitute material. So, but we had to go through this route and to qualify alternatives, either because of short supply from the supplier side, cut off because of the logistics issues, or other reasons. So yes, so we had to go through qualifying alternative SKUs. And in some other, like other than the raw materials or packing materials, I think it gives us also the opportunity to simplify. And probably this is an important angle, to look into simplification. What can you simplify in terms of your product design, that will probably in other times that you would have done it, as Ahmed mentioned, more of like an enhancement or a simplification idea. But at this time, it becomes necessary to consider some of those initiatives as an important flow of, to mitigate the risks that you are facing in your supply chain.
Yeah, that's a great point. And moving on to Ahmed, see, during periods of shortage, managing expectations across sales, retail, and distribution becomes very critical, as critical as sourcing itself. So how do you handle that internally, and what do you need from suppliers that you weren't always getting in the normal times, So how do you handle the expectations from both sides, Ahmed?
Yeah, well, when it comes to expectations, what we expect from the supplier is a full commitment. Then that when things go rough, they will be able to support, to provide, and not to fail us, especially if there is an area that has a criticality or has a shortage here and there, and to support us during our tough time. The true partners, to be honest, they support. They shoulder whenever you're incurring certain additional costs or a certain additional liabilities that they shoulder you with. And this is when it comes to the expectations from our side. And When it comes to the expectation from the customer, they do request the same. So for us to be able to transmit this to the customers, we had to create things on full visibility on all our resources, all the availabilities, which one we can rely on to bring forward shipments, which route can be utilized and not to have a hiccup and to go through, even though it could be a longer route. It could be not the fastest routes available or the cheapest routes available, but to ensure the supply will not be interrupted and to rely on our partners to ensure the supply and to have a full visibility and transparency with the customers to accommodate this as well whenever it is required.
What about managing the internal expectations? How do you manage, sales, retail, everybody is after your life. Get me my stocks.
And this, to be honest, is the story of our lives. This is usually managed on trust bases and confidence bases between colleagues and partners. But no matter what happened, there will be always delays. No matter what happened, there will be always crunch times that we need to accommodate. But yeah, this is nonstop. I would be more concerned. I would be more concerned to the external factors that I cannot control, like geopolitical or pandemics or these earthquakes or whatever it is. But when it comes to internal things, that this is I think every professional life daily work.
So moving on to Rezek, what is the single most enduring lesson that you took from this situation and any emergency sourcing, something that has permanently changed how you operate? Any examples or case studies you may want to give?
So I think the biggest lesson for us was COVID. From that time onwards, our strategies have changed. And the most important thing is the reliability on one source. Today, even if the critical item is there, even if there is a unique item, you should have an alternative source of it, preferably even from a different country. So whenever something happens, you at least be agile enough to shift from one side to another side to keep the flow of goods arriving to you without getting affection. And internally, another part, the more you are agile and flexible on your offering, the better you manage severe and emergent situation. If you have 300 SKU is different than having 1,500 SKUs. So the more you are agile, you are in control of your offering. So the flow of goods will always be under better management because larger SKUs will demand larger planning, larger sourcing, and larger supplier database. While if you are lean, you can perform and switch faster. So on the first part, which is the alternative sourcing, we developed 3 factories for donuts across the past 3 years, which we take the fruits of it today. If I want to give you a live example, we used to source donuts from Canada. In 2022, we started the project to develop a supplier in Netherlands, which took us almost 1 year to see light. Then by end of 23, it was 24, it was ready. And then recently, we finished the development luckily in Oman in January 26. Luckily. So imagine the luck that in January 26, the factory of Suhar started supplying. The war started after 1 month. So like one main SKU from my portfolio didn't get any turbulence because already the shifting happened. The other 2 factories became a backup. We still have orders once every quarter to keep the bridges active, but the main supply shifted to Oman. And then when the turbulence happened now, Oman factory is supplying normally. Yes, the freight is definitely affected. Even the internal GCC freight is affected, but not to a level of importing from the US versus getting from Oman. So those things that we learned and applied in COVID, some of them get the fruits now in such timing. And still we have a lot to develop. So these things, these are the takeaways I think from emergency sourcing that we should be aware of.
I think you are so lucky, with your Sohar supply
Yeah,
becoming
yeah.
active just in
Yeah.
time.
In January.
So that's, yeah, it's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we jump on to the final session now with us. How do you protect the bottom line? How do you protect your profitability in the aftermath of all those things, that are happening? So our final session focuses on margins and how the commercial relationship between the importer and exporters, need to evolve. So coming to Tariq now, Tariq, the question to you is that the rising freight, freight, I know that in Oman from $1,000 from China, it's gone to $6,000, $8,000, and still you're not sure you'll get space. So rising freight and input costs have put margins under sustained pressure. So as costs are rising, how do you decide what to absorb, what to pass through, and where do suppliers become part of the conversation where you go to them that, hey, the costs are gone up, I can't absorb everything. So is there something you can do, re-engineer and
That is
reduce your cost?
that is a very realistic kind of hands-on question. So I would say like we were lucky in some cases. So we had a mix of all these kind of options. In some cases, we managed to work with the suppliers to share some of those impacts or hits that came across the total landed cost. Like be it on direct on cost, be it on payment terms. So we had this opportunity to work with some of those our suppliers to minimize or reduce the impact on the total cost upcharge. In other cases, I would say on the less where we had more options to diversify, we simply went to the market and explored what are the other options out there at what price. And in many cases, we managed to find alternative sources that will keep us afloat in terms of not bringing impact on cost. And in some materials, as I said, we had to reconsider some of the specifications that will adapt to, like for example, some markets, some suppliers, we had to go to them and say, guys, what are the specifications that you have? And then we try to match, to identify the ones that are closest to our specifications, and then use that as an alternative until we figure out a different way to manage the way forward. So, and of course, the least favorite option will be basically to pass the cost downstream, and we try as much as we can to avoid that option by doing all the above kind of scenarios to avoid being in that position.
Yes, I totally agree. It's very difficult to pass on the cost to the customer in the face of, not so great sales and wherever, commodities and all other low margin products, I think the costs had to be passed down because there was not enough margins. But high-end fashion or high-end food or any high-end product where there were margins, I think we all have done our part by reducing our margins and absorbing the cost so that the end customer does not suffer or has the minimum exposure to the increased cost. So thank you, Tariq, for that insight. And now moving on to Ahmed. Ahmed, are you seeing changes in how suppliers structure pricing and commercial agreements in response to volatility? Because we used to have thousands of contracts which were CIF, and suddenly, people have woken up that no, it doesn't work. Needs to be X factory, X works, or FOB, because nobody is sure how much sea freight they have to absorb and so on. So a lot of agreements have changed. So what kind of pricing models are becoming more workables for importers like you today?
For us in healthcare is a little bit different because we have governmental contracts that are um, done over years, and we have to rely on on the partners that they will honor their commitment. We are holding our commitment even as we are selling in loss sometimes. But yes, everyone is trying, and depend on the level of partnership, we can shoulder each other's whenever it's possible. But the index pricing and the change in the structure of the prices, um, they have to consider what will be happening in the upcoming 2 years. Like most of our contracts is long-term contracts, and this survive the continuity of the business. However, it has its own risks, and risks has to be both ways. So no pain, no gain, like, as you know. So if something happened and we can negotiate, but we have to honor our commitments. So what I would expect from exporters and from partners that they won't pull out because things has changed. Whenever I can support, I will support. Whatever I cannot, I will not. But things has to be honored, especially with the government, of course, with the private sector, and if it's a normal commodity, or if it's a short-term contract like 2 to 3 months, we do understand, and even we can do this with our customers. But where we are stuck, to be honest, ourselves and our partners as well, is the governmental things. Although some governments has also modified and provided packages to support us during this period, and to pay us for the freight specifically, which was, as I mentioned, hilarious, and in some cases more expensive than the value of the items itself.
Yes, yes.
So, so so yes, this is our expectations from the principals, the partners, and the government as well, to back us up, and the indexing price not to be as much as realistic as it is, not to be exaggerated. As you mentioned, some had took advantage of the situations and reduced the price ridiculously, and they didn't never pull back. So now we are left over with the high price, which is nonsense and will affect the dynamics of the market as well.
But did you also switch the mode of transport in some places? Like, did you go from sea to air or sea to road? Because I hear so many friends shipping goods from Europe, from Turkey, from Egypt by road, which was earlier coming by sea, just because sea became unviable.
We did, to be honest. We took the long road, because we didn't have another option, because the green corridors was jammed. Shipments was going to Jeddah, to UAE, for example, has been taking ages because the port was over congested. So yes, we had a couple of shipments, one from Germany and one from Turkey, and by road, which is which I don't want to have it again, to be honest.
But at least it's heartening to note, I saw some friends, who got their trucks from Europe. I said, you must write a case study so that everybody hears this. And it's a story of resilience and
Um,
bouncing
we,
back. And
we've
people
done
should
it. We've done it a
people should
couple
know
of
that
times.
this option is open.
Yeah, but you need to provide to have the provider as well, because not many providers, because of the
Transiting so many borders,
so many borders, exactly,
Yeah.
so many borders, and in many cases it has challenges. So very few providers that they are doing this, because in the regular times this is not feasible. The plane will be much cheaper, for
Yes,
example,
yes.
but
Mm.
unfortunately it was constituted by the situation.
Yeah. I think the rail route is not fully made. Otherwise, rail could have become a very good option, and all of us who are being hijacked by the high trucking prices, maybe things will stabilize and governments will realize that, rail also needs to be an option, because especially Oman and Saudi. These are huge countries, and a good railway freight line makes sense. And I think UAE to Sohar is already under advanced stages of construction. Hafid Railways. It should be up and running by end of 2026 or early 27. Sorry, end of 27. Also, I think the Tihad Rail, which is already completed up to from UAE to Saudi Bata border, government Saudi will do something to take it up to Riyadh, and the land bridge between Jeddah and Riyadh. That is very critical, very critical. I think governments are already working
Bridge.
on
Ah,
land bridge. I mean railway
the
bridge.
land. The rail bridge. Yeah, yes, yes.
The name given by the government is land bridge.
Okay.
The railway line between Jeddah and Riyadh, which should have come 20 years ago, is still we are waiting.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. It will make a big difference in Saudi, frankly
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah. So moving on to Rezek, in our final panel question. So where can exporters genuinely help protect your margins? Whether through payment terms or minimum order quantity, MOQ flexibility, or consolidate shipping, alternate shipping, or something else. So what do we take away from today's discussion as to how exporters can help us protect our margins?
Thank you, Shailen, for the question. If I may select all, I would select all of them. So I will need all of them to get support on. But mainly today, I think Incoterms are discussed. Yeah, payment terms and MOQ, we have already lined up on this. So the more support I would need from a supplier, from an exporter, is transparency on the cost buildup. Today, it's not an opportunity for you to increase your cost without control and lose me forever. You might benefit from a certain time today to increase your cost, but later on, once things stabilize, the first thing I would do, I will move out of you to another supplier. So transparency and honoring the relationship with us is the most important takeaway that suppliers should take into consideration today. Tough timings are difficult time. If you are united and you are well tied up with your vendor, you will pass them. You can share the cost. You can understand the cost build up. Some suppliers are very transparent. They come to you with an open book policy. This is our problem. Let's solve it together. Let's see what you can shoulder, what we can shoulder. These things will tighten up the relation with them. And when things get back to normal, you will remember only these things to increase the dependency, to increase the relation, to add volumes to these suppliers, while others who benefited to increase their prices to put you on a corner because of monopoly of supply or of this will be also put it aside later on and select a new vendor to develop the SKU with. So MOQ, consolidated shipment, flexible lead time, flexible payment term. I mean, at least a good heads up on the lead time. Those things are well needed, but for me, as an essentially required in this particular timing, is to be very transparent, very open to each others, to discuss numbers openly, because I need to protect my COGS, he needs to protect his profit, and I need to protect my customer. And this competition happening today with what's happening around us, prices cannot be increased randomly. You have to take a lot of factor into consideration, from the market supply to the presence of the competitors to the demand from the end user, the purchase power that has dropped, a lot of things that are accumulated. So to balance all of this, I think transparency is a key that should be started from the initial step of negotiation to the pricing to the end user.
Yes, I think I totally agree with you, and these points are very important, and we should follow. So, as a final wrap up, I would request all Tariq, Ahmed, and Rezek to give one closing remark as to what is your closing remark, what you would do, or what we should do, or what everyone would do. So, starting with Tariq, maybe 1 minute, 1.5 minute closing remark.
All right. So what I would do in these kind of like many of these kind of occasions where supply chain becomes under huge pressure, is to look internally into the strategy. What can be done in terms of reviewing your sourcing strategy. I would say the winning strategy in my view is what we call in supply chain glocalization, which is a mix of globalization and localization. Don't continue to count on keeping your sources far away from you. Get them as close as you can, again, without compromising too much on cost. The second thing is simplification. Look into this will give you an opportunity to simplify your supply chain. What are the areas that you can redesign that will give you agility, that will detangle you from the bottlenecks that is currently forcing you towards certain options. The final thing is having solid reporting tools or data analytics that will keep you updated on all fronts. Data is power, especially in tough times.
Yeah, totally agree. Ahmed, for your closing remarks.
Yeah. Well, actually, the support and the coordination that is required from all parties involved and to be considerate of the turbulent times and how to work together, not take advantage from the situation, not to try to secure your profits and expose the others. Just these kind of collaborations is essentially required, and it is anticipated from long-term partners. As Risk mentioned, if someone has tried to overprice you something, then you will walk away afterwards. Then will not happen. So more coordination and collaboration between all parties in consideration of all business requirements. This is essential for our supply chain resilience and continuation nowadays. And these are not becoming an options or a privilege for efficiency, but it is a mandate, if I may say.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Collaboration is the key. Tariq, Rezek, any closing remarks?
Yeah. So for me, I would end this with two comments, two main topics. First of all is diversification. We need to diversify our dependency on the vendors. We need to have a plan B and plan C and plan D sometimes, maintaining quality, but having different sourcing, different supplier that you rely on, different factories that can support you anytime you require. And second part is that we are lucky that we are in a region where technology and economy is supported by strong leaders. We need to benefit from this. I think there are a lot of hidden potentials within the region, from factories, manufacturers, global players that have presence here. We can develop things within our region. I think potential is there. They are growing more and more. Dependency on the local supply within the GCC is growing. So that's an opportunity for us to put ourselves within this trend and try to bring as much product as we can to be localized while keeping definitely the relation with the global supplier. But dependency on the local supplier will help you with streamlining your inventory, reducing the exposures, reducing your cash blockage, being able to develop and focus on R&D a lot because the factory is next to you, so you can elevate your R&D, your offering. So I think those two key topics are important for us to focus on nowadays after the difficult 5 years we passed through from COVID till today.
Yeah, I totally agree with all three of you. Localize, simplify, have your reporting tools, 360-degree support from all kind of vendors, collaborate with vendors, and diversify. These are very good points. I think one point I also want to reemphasize, I touched briefly earlier, is that the governments need to wake up, have a plan B. Just having road is not enough. We need rail. Just having rail is also not enough. Just having one port is not enough. You need multiple ports. So between Jebel Ali and Khalifa Port, Abu Dhabi, almost they have 20 million TEU capacity. And look at Khor Fakkan and Fujairah. They are very small, maybe 1 million, 2 million. So Har is 4 million, 5 million. So I guess we thought nothing can go wrong, and Strait of Hormuz is forever. And so the plan B was never developed. As I mentioned earlier, also, when 2 years back Red Sea was hit, Jeddah was closed, and suddenly we realized Dammam doesn't have capacity. Jeddah is like 12 million TEUs, and Dammam in those days was like 2 million, 3 million. There were not enough trucks. There was not enough parking space for containers. Even as we speak, I know in Sohar there is so much of congestion. Vessels are waiting 7 days, 10 days to berth. When they discharge, you take the container. The port doesn't want the container back because there's no space inside the port to keep the containers. Dukum could have been a great option, but again, probably it will get developed more. Salalah was a very good option, being very close to a Yemen border and very close to Saudi. It could have been a great option. But unfortunately, the governments probably did not visualize that something could go wrong so drastically. And I was talking to a friend in a MNC, I don't want to name them. They had an AI model which was calculating 2,500 variables for their demand planning. And it crashed because the Strait of Hormuz was a black swan they did not plan for. So maybe we all should work together with our IT, with our supply chain experts, and develop AI models which are more predictable, more reliable. And as of now, you see AI is more of a buzz. And unless you are a like multi-billion-dollar MNC working across the globe, across several continents, very few people, because if your demand planning, a bad demand planning can give you a hit of billions, you probably won't invest millions in a solution, AI-based solution, which can be more predictable, and we all know demand planning, how it works, when you need it most, it doesn't stand by you, it deserts you. So those would be my personal observations. So we have run through all the topics for discussion. And thank you, Tariq, Ahmed, and Rezek for these invaluable insights. So what stands out from today's conversation is that GCC market remains a very significant opportunity, but the rules of engagement have changed. So importers are no longer choosing suppliers on loyalty alone. They are looking for partners who can demonstrate reliability under pressure, flexibility in commercial terms, and a genuine understanding of the market that they are entering. So on that note, I would say join us at the Middle East Organic and Natural Products Expo in Dubai this November, from 16th to 18th November in the Dubai World Trade Center, to experience these conversations in person and connect and meet directly with the region's leading buyers and importers. And if you are based in Saudi Arabia, the Organic Expo has extended to the kingdom, bringing you the Natural World Expo Saudi from 14 to 16 December 2026 at the Riyadh Front Exhibition and Conference Center. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the session as much as we enjoyed talking. I hope you enjoyed listening, and looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much again, Tariq, Ahmed, and Rezek, and thank you organizers, for arranging this opportunity for this lovely discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.